At the prestigious Monarch Hotel in Manhattan, appearances are everything. The marble floors shine like mirrors, and every guest is judged by their designer clothes and expensive jewelry. So when Tom Davidson walks in wearing his work boots and farm-stained jacket, the hotel manager takes one look and refuses him a room. What the manager doesn't know is that this simple farmer owns one of the largest agricultural enterprises in America. The next morning, Tom returns to the hotel, not as a guest, but as its new owner. Standing in the same lobby where he was humiliated, Tom makes a decision that will change not just the hotel, but the lives of everyone who works there. Now the same manager who turned him away must answer to him. What happens next will rewrite the rules of luxury hospitality forever. Just how did this humble farmer turn rejection into the sweetest revenge? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Rain pelted the windshield of Tom Davidson's pickup truck as he circled the block for the third time, searching for parking near the Monarch Hotel. The November storm had caught Manhattan unprepared, turning the streets into rivers of yellow taxicabs and black umbrellas. Tom had spent the day in meetings with agricultural investors, his boots collecting mud from visits to potential acquisition sites in New Jersey. Now, at nearly midnight, all he wanted was a bed. He finally found a spot 2 blocks away, grabbed his weathered leather overnight bag, and stepped into the downpour. The city felt different at night, more honest somehow, with its pretenses washed away by the rain. Tom pulled his work jacket tighter, the scent of fresh earth still clinging to the fabric, despite the morning's hasty attempt at cleaning. The Monarch Hotel rose before him like a golden castle, its illuminated windows casting warm rectangles onto the wet sidewalk. A doorman in an embroidered uniform stood beneath the curved entrance awning, his eyes widening slightly at Tom's approach. The man's hand twitched, as if unsure whether to open the door for someone dressed so plainly. "Evening," Tom said, nodding as he reached for the door himself. The doorman hesitated, then quickly stepped forward to pull it open, his practiced smile not quite reaching his eyes. The lobby struck Tom like a physical force, all gleaming marble and crystal chandeliers, with plush carpets that probably cost more than his first tractor. The scent of money hung in the air, mixed with expensive perfume and polished brass. A group of well-dressed guests lounged on velvet sofas, their laughter tinkling like the ice in their cocktail glasses. Tom's boots squeaked against the floor as he approached the front desk, leaving faint muddy prints that a hovering bellhop quickly moved to wipe away. Behind the desk, a man in his 50s stood ramrod straight, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his suit impeccable. The nameplate on his chest read, "James Crawford, front office manager." "Good evening," Tom said, setting his bag down. "I'd like a room for the night, please." Crawford's eyes performed a swift assessment, starting at Tom's mud-stained boots and working their way up to his rain-dampened hair. His lips thinned almost imperceptibly. "I'm afraid we're fully booked for the evening, sir," Crawford said, not bothering to check his computer. Tom glanced around the quiet lobby. "Fully booked?" "At midnight. The Monarch Hotel caters to a particular clientele," Crawford said, his voice dropping slightly. "Perhaps I could recommend something more suitable? There's a perfectly adequate chain hotel several blocks south." The words hung in the air. Between them. Tom had heard that tone before, back in '82 when he'd tried to get his first bank loan, and again in '95 when he'd attended his first agricultural investment conference. It was the sound of doors closing, of assumptions being made. "I can pay whatever the rate is," Tom said quietly, reaching for his wallet. "I've had a long day, and—" "Sir," Crawford interrupted, "I've already explained our situation. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have guests to attend to." He turned away, making a small gesture to security. A young bellhop nearby caught Tom's eye, giving him an apologetic look. The boy quickly scribbled something on a piece of paper and slipped it onto the floor near Tom's feet as he pretended to clean. 2 security guards appeared, their presence more suggestion than threat. "Sir, please don't make this difficult," one said softly. Tom looked down at the paper by his foot, a business card for a nearby hotel, with "They're good people" scrawled on the back. He bent to pick it up, tucking it into his pocket as he retrieved his bag. "You know," Tom said, turning back to Crawford, "my father used to say you can tell a lot about a person by how they treat folks they think can't do anything for them." He smiled slightly. "Have a good night." The rain had lightened to a drizzle as Tom stepped back onto the street. He took one last look at the Monarch's gleaming facade, then pulled out his phone and dialed a familiar number. "Sarah, sorry to call so late. Remember that hospitality portfolio we discussed? How quickly can we move on the Monarch Hotel acquisition?" "Yes, that Monarch Hotel. No, I think I'd like to handle this one personally. First thing tomorrow." "Morning." Tom ended the call and headed toward his truck, the bellhop's business card still in his pocket. Behind him, through the Monarch's spotless windows, Crawford was already attending to a couple dripping in designer labels, his smile bright and practiced as he checked them in. In the morning, things would change, but for tonight, Tom had a different hotel to find and mud-stained boots that had carried him through worse storms than this. James Crawford polished his gold service pin every morning before his shift. 20 years of excellence captured in a small piece of metal. He'd earned it the hard way, climbing from junior concierge to front office manager through a combination of impeccable taste and unwavering standards. The pin gleamed under the lobby's crystal chandeliers as he straightened his Italian silk tie, preparing for another evening of protecting the Monarch's reputation. "Mr. Crawford." Jessica, one of the newer desk clerks, approached with a stack of reservation confirmations. The Aldridge party called to confirm their usual suite for next week. "Excellent. Mrs. Aldridge prefers the corner room with the park view. Make sure housekeeping knows to stock the Cristal." He paused, noting Jessica's designer shoes. Good. She understood the importance of appearance in their world. Unlike that farm boy from earlier, the memory of those mud-stained boots on his pristine marble floors made him shudder. The lobby hummed with the quiet energy of old money. A Saudi prince chatted with a tech billionaire near the bar, while a famous actress tried to look inconspicuous behind oversized sunglasses. This was Crawford's domain, a carefully curated ecosystem of wealth and influence. "Sir?" The security guard who had helped escort out the farmer appeared at his elbow. "That man from earlier. He dropped this." He held out a business card. Rain-damaged, but still legible. "Davidson Agricultural Enterprises." Crawford barely glanced at it. "Probably picked it up somewhere. Did you see his clothes? No real businessman would present himself like that." He waved the guard away, turning his attention to a group of arriving guests trailing designer luggage. Later that night, as the lobby quieted, Crawford sat in his office reviewing the day's reports. His wall displayed photographs of himself, with various celebrities and dignitaries who had graced the Monarch's halls. Each picture represented a victory, a moment when his instincts about people had proven correct. A message from the hotel owner's office popped up on his computer screen. "Emergency board meeting tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., attendance mandatory." Crawford frowned. Emergency meetings usually meant budget cuts or ownership changes. He'd survived 3 ownership transitions in his career, each time proving himself indispensable through his ability to maintain the Monarch's exclusive standards. The night manager knocked on his door. "Mr. Crawford, there's a call for you on line 1. They say it's about a guest you turned away earlier." "Handle it," Crawford said dismissively. "I don't discuss my decisions with outside parties." "Sir, it's the owner's office." Crawford's hand froze on his mouse. "I'll take it in here." He lifted the receiver, his voice professionally smooth. "James Crawford speaking." "James." It was Sarah Chen, the owner's legal counsel. "We need to discuss your interaction with Mr. Davidson this evening." "Ah, yes, an unfortunate incident. The gentleman was clearly in the wrong establishment and became quite insistent. I merely maintained our standards." "Those standards," Sarah interrupted, "just cost us dearly. Mr. Davidson's holding company began purchasing controlling shares of the hotel an hour ago. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Crawford's free hand went to his gold service pin. I don't understand. That man was the owner of one of the largest agricultural enterprises in the country, and now, apparently, he's interested in adding hospitality to his portfolio. Sarah's voice cooled further. The board meeting tomorrow morning will be interesting, don't you think? The line went dead, leaving Crawford staring at his wall of photographs. In each one, he stood proud and confident, secure in his judgments. Now, for the first time in 20 years, he felt the ground shifting beneath his polished Italian leather. Shoes. He opened his browser and typed Davidson Agricultural Enterprises. The results made his stomach clench. Tom Davidson's net worth was more than the hotel's entire value. The man he'd dismissed as a farmer had enough money to buy the Monarch 10 times over. Crawford reached for his phone, then stopped. What could he possibly say? Sorry I judged you by your boots? The night settled around him. The familiar sounds of the hotel continuing as always, elevator chimes, distant laughter, the soft footsteps of the cleaning staff. But now each sound seemed to mock him, a countdown to tomorrow morning when everything would change. He took off his gold service pin and set it on the desk, its shine suddenly less brilliant under the office lights. The Holiday Inn's parking garage wasn't exactly the Monarch's marble lobby, but at least it was dry. Tom sat in his truck, listening to the rain drum against the roof while he made calls. The business card from the bellhop lay on the dashboard, a small act of kindness in a night full of memories he'd rather forget. What do you mean, already in motion? Tom held his phone closer to his ear. Sarah, I just called you about this an hour ago. And I moved on it immediately, his legal counsel replied. The Monarch's parent company is publicly traded. Once, I saw what happened. I knew you'd want to act quickly. We've already secured 15% of the shares. Tom smiled despite his exhaustion. This was why he kept Sarah on retainer. She thought like he did. How much to get controlling interest? At current market value, less than what you spent on that new grain elevator last month. A cleaning cart rattled past his truck, pushed by a woman in a hotel uniform. She gave him a curious look, probably wondering why someone was sitting in their vehicle at 1 a.m. Tom waved, and she offered a tired smile in return. Do it, he told Sarah, but keep it quiet until morning. I want to handle this personally. After ending the call, Tom finally grabbed his overnight bag and headed into the Holiday Inn. The lobby was modest but clean, with a coffee station that had seen better days and a bowl of apples that had definitely come from a supermarket, not a farm. Rough night? The desk clerk, her nameplate read Maria, looked up from her paperwork. You could say that. Tom set the bellhop's business card on the counter. A friend recommended you. Maria picked up the card, recognition flickering across her face. Ah, Jimmy from the Monarch. He sends us people sometimes when... She trailed off diplomatically. When they don't meet the Monarch standards. Tom finished. Their loss is our gain. Maria typed on her computer. I've got a room on the 3rd floor. Nothing fancy, but it's clean and quiet. As she processed his credit card, Tom noticed photos taped to her computer monitor. Children's. School pictures. A graduation ceremony. Real life, not the carefully curated luxury of the Monarch. You know, Maria said, handing him his key card, I worked at the Monarch for 6 months, years ago. Left after Crawford wrote me up for speaking Spanish to a guest who was struggling with English. That doesn't surprise me. Tom thought of Crawford's dismissive glance, his refusal to even check for vacancies. Things might be changing there. Soon. It would take a miracle, Maria shrugged, or someone buying the place and cleaning house. Tom just smiled and took his key. The room was exactly as promised, clean, quiet, and utterly without pretense. Tom sat on the bed and pulled out his tablet, reviewing the Monarch's financial reports that Sarah had sent over. The hotel was profitable but not thriving, its reputation for exclusivity masking deeper problems. His phone buzzed with another message from Sarah. 28% of shares secured. Board meeting called for 9 a.m. Tom thought about Crawford, about Maria, about the young bellhop who'd risked his job to help a stranger. A hotel was more than its marble floors and crystal chandeliers. It was the people who made it run, the small kindnesses and daily indignities that guests never saw. He opened his email and began drafting a message to his operations team. The subject line read, "Monarch Hotel, immediate changes required." Below it, he listed his priorities. Staff audit, retain those who show compassion, regardless of position, new hiring initiative. Focus on experience and character over appearances. Community integration program. Make luxury accessible, not exclusionary. The rain had finally stopped when Tom finished working. Through his window, he could see the Monarch's illuminated spire in the distance, a beacon of privilege about to be transformed. He thought about his father, who taught him that true worth had nothing to do with appearances and everything to do with how you treated others. Tomorrow would be interesting. But for now, this simple room in this modest hotel felt more welcoming than all the Monarch's luxury. Tom set his alarm for 7, enough time to return to his apartment, change into a suit that cost more than Crawford's monthly salary, and arrive at the board meeting, ready to rewrite the rules of hospitality. The last thing he saw before falling asleep was the bellhop's business card on the nightstand, a reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures could trigger the biggest changes. Dawn painted Manhattan's skyscrapers in shades of gold as Tom's car service pulled up to his penthouse apartment. The doorman greeted him with genuine warmth. Tom had never let his success change how he treated people, and they remembered. "Early morning, Mr. Davidson. More like a late night, Carlos." Tom handed him a bag of fresh apples he'd brought from one of his orchards. "How's your daughter's college applications going?" "She got into Cornell. Your recommendation letter helped." "The letter didn't get her in. Her hard work did." Tom smiled, remembering another young person with big dreams and limited means. In his apartment, Tom stood before his closet of custom suits, so different from the work clothes he'd worn last night. A framed newspaper article caught his eye. From Seeds to Success, Davidson's Agricultural Empire. The story had run in the Wall Street Journal 15 years ago, but he kept it as a reminder. His phone buzzed. Sarah again. "We're at 47%. Ownership. The board's getting nervous." "Good. They should be." Tom selected a charcoal Brioni suit. "Send me the latest staff records for the Monarch. I want to know everything about our friend Crawford." While his coffee brewed, Tom reviewed the files on his tablet. The Monarch's employee records told a story of high turnover among lower-level staff, while senior management remained unchanging. Crawford's personnel file was thick with commendations for maintaining standards and preserving the Monarch's exclusive atmosphere. Tom's mind wandered to his father's weathered hands, pointing out young shoots in their first field. "See these, Tommy. Some folks would pull them up, thinking they're too small, too weak, but with the right care, even the smallest seed can grow into something magnificent." That first field had been just 40 acres, bought with everything his parents had plus loans from 3 different banks. Tom remembered the loan officer's dismissive looks, the same expression Crawford had worn last night. But his father had taught him patience. They'd started with traditional crops, but Tom saw opportunities others missed. While neighboring farms struggled, he experimented with organic methods, specialty grains, and vertical integration. By 25, he'd paid off the loans. By 30, he owned 10,000 acres. Now, at 53, Davidson Agricultural Enterprises supplied premium organic produce to high-end restaurants across the country, including, ironically, the Monarch's own kitchen. His tablet chimed with another message from Sarah. She'd attached historical photos of the Monarch, including one from its opening in 1926. The original owner, an immigrant who'd started as a dishwasher, stood proudly before his dream made real. Somewhere along the way, that dream of hospitality had twisted into exclusion. Tom opened his safe and removed a worn leather wallet, his father's. Inside, a creased photograph showed a teenage Tom in mud-stained boots, standing beside his first tractor. His father's handwriting on the back read, "Remember where you came from and help others get where they're going." A notification popped up. 52% ownership secured. Board meeting in 1 hour. Tom adjusted his tie in the mirror, thinking about Crawford's perfectly polished appearance, hiding an ugly prejudice. The Monarch's gleaming facade concealed similar flaws. A culture of discrimination dressed up as standards. His phone rang. The operations team was ready with the changes he'd requested. New hiring policies, training programs, community outreach initiatives. The Monarch wouldn't just change owners, it would change purpose. "Mr. Davidson!" His assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Your car is ready." Tom gathered his documents and took one last look at his father's wallet. Inside was a small news clipping he'd saved. "Local teen wins State Agricultural Science Prize." The photo showed him accepting the award in his best shirt, still clearly a farmer's son. The judge who'd chosen his project had looked past his rough appearance to see the innovation beneath. That judge had changed his life with that simple act of seeing his true worth. Now, Tom had a chance to do the same for others. In the elevator, he reviewed Sarah's latest message. The Monarch's board was in disarray, trying to figure out who was buying up their stock. Crawford had arrived early, she reported, looking nervous. Good. Let him sweat. The car waited outside, its leather interior a far cry from his mud-spattered truck. But Tom knew which vehicle he preferred, the one that had built his empire, dirt and all. "To the Monarch Hotel," he told the driver. "Time to plant some new seeds." The Monarch's executive boardroom occupied the entire top floor, with windows overlooking Central Park. James Crawford stood at one of these windows, absently touching his gold service pin as murmurs of confusion filled the room behind him. Board members huddled over laptops, watching their hotel's stock price climb. 63%, someone whispered. "Who has that kind of money?" The elevator chimed. Crawford turned, expecting the hotel's current owners. Instead, he found himself staring at the man from last night, except this wasn't the same mud-stained farmer. Tom Davidson wore a suit that probably cost more than Crawford's car, his presence filling the room with quiet authority. "Good morning," Tom said, directing his words to the entire board, but keeping his eyes on Crawford. "I believe you're expecting me." Sarah Chen entered behind him, carrying a leather portfolio. "Mr. Davidson now controls a majority share of the Monarch Hotel group. This meeting is to formalize the transition of ownership." Crawford's legs felt weak. He gripped the back of a chair as the board erupted in questions. "Davidson, the agricultural magnate? The organic food supplier? Wasn't there some incident last night?" Tom took his seat at the head of the table, the position traditionally reserved for the owner. "Yes to all of those questions, and yes, Mr. Crawford can confirm there was an incident last night. Would you like to share your side of the story, James?" Crawford's collar felt too tight. "Sir, I had no idea who you were. If I had known..." "That's exactly the problem." Tom's voice remained gentle, but his eyes were steel. "You shouldn't need to know someone's net worth to treat them with dignity." Sarah began distributing documents. "The purchase agreement is straightforward. Mr. Davidson's holding company will acquire all outstanding shares at a 20% premium over market value." One of the board members, an elderly man with a bow tie, cleared his throat. "This is highly irregular. The Monarch has a certain reputation to maintain." "Yes," Tom agreed. "A reputation for turning away guests based on appearances, for valuing clothing over character. That reputation ends today." He opened a folder and withdrew a stack of papers. Employee complaints, turnover statistics, customer reviews. "Your occupancy rate has dropped 12% in 3 years. Your staff turnover in lower positions is triple the industry average. You're not maintaining standards, you're maintaining prejudices." Crawford found his voice. "Those standards built this hotel's reputation." "No." Tom stood. walking to a black and white photo on the wall. The Monarch's opening day. This hotel was built by an immigrant dishwasher who worked his way up. He created a place where luxury meant service, not exclusion. Somewhere along the way, you forgot that. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Numbers didn't lie, and the numbers in front of them told a story of decline masked by elitism. The sale will proceed, Sarah announced. The only question is whether current management wishes to be part of the hotel's new direction. Tom turned to Crawford. Well, James, are you interested in learning a different way to measure a person's worth? Crawford looked around the room, at the faces of board members who wouldn't meet his eyes, at the damning statistics, at his own reflection in the window, suddenly unsure of what he saw there. I would like to learn, he said quietly. Tom nodded, satisfied. Good, because your first assignment is to find the bellhop who helped me last night. He's got a promotion coming. The meeting continued, but Crawford barely heard it. He was remembering all the guests he'd turned away, all the staff he'd dismissed, all the judgments he'd made based on surfaces instead of substance. When the final papers were signed, Tom stood again. The Monarch is going to change, but not into something new. We're going to make it what it was always meant to be, a place where genuine hospitality matters more than designer labels. The board filed out, leaving Tom and Crawford alone in the room. Tom walked to the window, looking down at the street where he'd stood in the rain just hours before. Your office is still yours, Tom said, if you want it. But understand this, the next time someone walks in with mud on their boots, they might just be your boss. Crawford removed his gold service pin and placed it on the table. I think I need a new one anyway, a reminder to start fresh. Good answer, Tom said. Now let's go find that bellhop. The security cameras captured every moment of Tom's return to the lobby, this time with Crawford following behind him like a chastened shadow. The morning staff froze in place, sensing the shift in power even before Tom spoke. Everyone, gather round, please, Tom called out, his voice carrying the same gentle authority he used with his farm managers, including housekeeping and kitchen staff. The lobby slowly filled with employees. Some wore crisp uniforms, others wore clothes marked with the evidence of their labor. The young bellhop from last night, Jimmy Torres according to his nameplate, D stood at the back, eyes widening as he recognized Tom. For those who don't know me, I'm Tom Davidson. As of 15 minutes ago, I own the Monarch Hotel. He paused, letting the murmurs subside. Some of you saw me here last night, though. I looked a bit different. Jimmy stepped forward. Sir, about the business card I gave you. You mean the one that led me to meet Maria? Tom smiled. The kind of initiative I like to see in my employees. Speaking of which, how do you feel about becoming our new guest relations manager? The lobby fell silent. Crawford's face twitched. That position typically required years of experience and a college degree. Jimmy had neither. But sir, Jimmy stammered, I'm just a bellhop. No, Tom said firmly. You're someone who saw a person in need and helped them. That's exactly the spirit this hotel needs. He turned to address the entire staff. From this moment on, the Monarch operates under one simple principle. We judge people by how they treat others, not by what they wear or how they look. A housekeeper in the back raised her hand tentatively. Does this mean we can speak Spanish with guests who prefer it? Yes, Tom nodded, glancing at Crawford. In fact, we'll be offering language classes to any staff member who wants to learn. The more ways we can make guests feel welcome, the better. The staff exchanged looks, hope mixing with uncertainty. Change was always unsettling, even positive. Change. Mr. Crawford will remain as manager, Tom continued, but with a new focus on inclusivity and genuine hospitality. He has some learning to do, as do we all. Crawford stepped forward, his usual polish somewhat dimmed. I owe many of you an apology, starting with Mr. Torres. He turned to Jimmy. I should have recognized your instinct for hospitality long ago. The lobby's crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, but Tom noticed a crack in one of the marble floor tiles, hidden for years under a strategic placement of potted plants. It reminded him of his first fields, where rocks and weeds had concealed rich soil beneath. "One more thing," Tom addressed the staff again. "I want a complete review of all employee disciplinary records and dismissed applications. If anyone was turned away because they didn't fit someone's idea of the right image, I want to know." He caught sight of his own reflection in the lobby's mirrors. The expensive suit, the confident stance. Success had changed his appearance, but not his essence. That was the lesson the monarch needed to learn. "Sir," a voice from the back, "does this mean we should change how we greet guests? The standard procedures? Treat every guest like they matter?" Tom interrupted. "Because they do. Everything else is just details." As the staff dispersed, energized by the promise of change, Tom noticed Jimmy still standing nearby, clutching his new business cards, freshly printed with Guest Relations Manager under his name. "Thank you, sir," Jimmy said quietly, "not just for the promotion, but for showing that—" He struggled to find the words. "That work boots can walk into a luxury hotel." Tom finished with a smile. "Go on, you have a new job to learn. And Jimmy, keep some of those business cards handy. You never know who might need directions to somewhere they belong." The lobby slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but something had shifted. The doorman held the door with genuine warmth rather than practiced polish. A housekeeper greeted a guest in rapid Spanish, receiving a grateful smile in return, and Crawford stood at his desk, finally seeing his domain with new eyes. Change, Tom knew, would take time. But like the first green shoots breaking through spring soil, it had begun. The new policy manual landed on every department head's desk by noon. Gone were the old rules about maintaining exclusive standards and appropriate guest profiles. In their place, simple directives focused on genuine hospitality and respect. Tom sat in the hotel's restaurant, sharing lunch with Jimmy and Maria, whom he'd brought over from the Holiday Inn as the new head of housekeeping. The other diners, mostly wealthy regulars, kept stealing glances at their table, especially when Tom's laughter carried across the room. "So then," Maria was saying, "this guest asks me in broken English about local restaurants. Under the old rules, I would have had to fetch a concierge. Instead, I gave her directions in Spanish, and you know what? She turned out to be the mother of a famous actress. Wrote the hotel a beautiful thank you note." Jimmy nodded eagerly. "And yesterday, I helped an elderly man in work clothes find his grandson's wedding reception. Turned out he'd built half the buildings on Park Avenue. The old me would have directed him to the service entrance." Crawford approached their table, his posture still stiff but less imperial. "Mr. Davidson, the guest satisfaction scores from the past week just came in." He paused, seeming to struggle with old habits. "May I join?" "You? Pull up a chair, James." Tom gestured to the empty seat. "And I think it's time you called me Tom." The satisfaction scores showed a surprising uptick. Guest comments mentioned warmth, genuine care, and refreshing authenticity. There were some complaints too, mostly from long-time patrons uncomfortable with the more diverse clientele. "The Hendersons cancelled their standing reservation," Crawford reported. "They said the hotel is becoming too accessible." "Good," Tom said firmly. "Let me tell you about accessible. When I was starting out, I tried to get a loan from 6 different banks. The 7th one had a janitor who recognized me from the farmer's market where I sold vegetables. He mentioned me to his manager. That manager took a chance on me." He looked at Crawford meaningfully. "Sometimes the best opportunities come through the service entrance." A commotion near the door drew their attention. A group of construction workers, still dusty from their site, stood uncertainly in the restaurant entrance. The maitre d' looked torn between old instincts and new policies. "Jimmy," Tom nodded toward the group, "show us how guest relations works now." Jimmy approached the workers with a genuine smile. "Welcome to the Monarch. Table for 4. We're probably in the wrong place," one of them said, glancing down at his boots, not unlike Tom's from the night before. Actually, you're exactly where you belong. Jimmy gestured to a window table with a Central Park view. And I recommend the burger. Our chef just updated the menu to include some more casual options. Maria watched the scene with satisfaction. You know what? The best part is, 3 of my housekeepers have enrolled in the new management training program. Before, they wouldn't have dared. Crawford studied his perfectly polished shoes. I've been reviewing those disciplinary records you asked for, Tom. The patterns, they're not easy to face. Growth never is, Tom replied. On my first farm, I had to tear out half my crops when I realized I'd planted them wrong. Painful lesson, but the next season's harvest was better for it. The construction workers were enjoying their lunch now, their initial discomfort forgotten. Other guests had barely noticed them, too absorbed in their own meals and conversations. Sarah arrived with more documents. The updated employee handbook, new marketing materials, community outreach proposals. The Monarch's transformation was taking shape on paper, but more importantly, it was coming alive in moments like this. We're planning a series of events, Jimmy explained, enthusiasm lighting up his face. A weekly dinner where local workers eat free, a partnership with hospitality schools in lower-income areas, even cooking classes with our chef for neighborhood kids. Crawford pulled out his old gold service pin, turning it over in his hands. I've worn this for so long, I forgot what service really means. Keep it, Tom suggested, but maybe not. As a symbol of exclusion, more as a reminder that true service means opening doors, not closing them. Through the restaurant's windows, they could see the steady stream of people entering the hotel. Business executives mixed with tourists, construction, workers with celebrities, all receiving the same genuine welcome. You know what this reminds me of? Tom mused, watching the diverse crowd. My first farmer's market stall. Everyone who stopped by got the same tomatoes, the same respect, the same care. Turned out good food, like good hospitality, doesn't care what you're wearing. The lunch crowd began to thin, but the energy in the room remained transformed. The Monarch was changing, one guest, one policy, one moment of genuine hospitality at a time. Sarah's office had become command central for the Monarch's transformation. The walls were covered with employee files, each one telling a story of opportunities denied or careers stalled. As she reviewed them with Tom, patterns emerged. Patterns that all led back to James Crawford. 23 complaints in the past year alone, Sarah said, highlighting another entry in her spreadsheet, all involving staff members who didn't meet the Monarch standards, disproportionately affecting minorities and immigrants. Tom studied a photo on her desk, the hotel's entire staff from 10 years ago. The contrast with today's more diverse team was striking. And Crawford was behind all of these? Most of them, though to be fair, he was just enforcing the culture that existed before you arrived. She handed him a particular file. But this one's different. It's from this morning. Inside was a formal complaint about Crawford himself, filed by a junior concierge. The young man had been reprimanded for helping an elderly Asian couple who Crawford assumed couldn't afford the premium suites they'd requested. Old habits, Tom sighed. How's Jimmy handling these situations? Like a natural. Sarah smiled. He's already implemented a new training program for front desk staff. Crawford attended the first session yesterday. The door opened, and Crawford himself entered, looking uncomfortable in a slightly less formal suit than usual. You wanted to see me? Tom gestured to the chair across from him. James, we need to talk about these complaints. I know. Crawford's voice was quiet. I've been reviewing them myself. It's difficult to see it all laid out like this. Tell me about the Chen couple from this morning. Crawford's shoulders tensed. I thought I was protecting the hotel's interests. They were dressed so simply, and their English, like my parents when they first arrived here. Sarah interrupted, her tone sharp. They owned 3 restaurants by the time I started law school. I'm trying, Crawford said, and for the first time, real emotion cracked through his polished facade. 30 years of habits don't change overnight. Every instinct I have, everything that made me successful in this industry, tells me to maintain certain standards. Standards, Tom repeated thoughtfully. You know, in farming we have standards too. Soil quality, crop yields, equipment maintenance. But the highest standard isn't about how clean the tractor looks. It's about whether the harvest feeds people. He stood and walked to the window, watching guests enter the hotel below. Your instincts aren't wrong, James. We do need standards. But they should be about service, not exclusion. About lifting people up, not keeping them out. Sarah pulled out another file, thicker than the others. These are the candidates you rejected for management positions over the past 5 years. I'd like you to review each one personally, then work with Jimmy to create a recruitment plan that focuses on potential rather than pedigree. Crawford took the file, his hands trembling slightly. And if I can't change enough, if these instincts are too deeply ingrained, then you'll have a choice to make, Tom said simply. But I don't think it'll come to that. You know why? He picked up Crawford's gold service pin from the desk. Because under all these layers of standards and protocol, you actually care about hospitality, real hospitality. The Chen couple, Crawford said slowly, they booked the suite. Their granddaughter is starting at Columbia Medical School. They wanted to be here for her orientation. He paused. They were lovely people. I would have missed that before. Progress, Sarah noted, making a mark in her files. Small steps, Tom agreed. Like seedlings breaking through hard soil, they look fragile at first, but given time. He turned to Crawford. Go apologize to them personally. Then join Jimmy's afternoon training session, not as an observer, as a participant. After Crawford left, Sarah reviewed her notes. It would be easier to replace him. Maybe, Tom acknowledged, but transformation isn't about taking the easy path. It's about believing people can grow, even when they don't believe it themselves. Through the window, they watched Crawford cross the lobby, heading toward the elevators that would take him to the Chen couple's suite. His posture was different, less rigid, more human. Besides, Tom smiled, sometimes the toughest soil yields the strongest crops. You just have to be patient enough to work it properly. The thank you letter arrived 2 weeks after the ownership change, handwritten on cream-colored stationery. It was addressed to Mr. Crawford and the new Monarch Hotel, and it made its way from the front desk to Tom's office, where he now sat reading it with Jimmy and Crawford. Dear Mr. Crawford, Tom read aloud, 5 years ago, you turned me away from the Monarch because my clothes weren't expensive enough and my accent was too strong. Last week, your new guest relations manager welcomed me and my family like we were royalty. My daughter's wedding reception in your grand ballroom was everything she dreamed of. Thank you for learning to see people differently. Sincerely, Rosa Mendez. Crawford sat very still, his face a complex mixture of shame and hope. I remember her. She came in wearing clothes from Target, asking about wedding packages. And now she's a successful real estate developer, Jimmy added. She booked our most expensive wedding package, but that's not even the best part. He pulled out his phone, showing them the hotel's latest social media mentions. Rosa had shared her story, and it was going viral. The Monarch Hotel shows true luxury, means treating everyone with dignity, Tom read from the comments. Best service in Manhattan. They've really changed. The past 2 weeks had brought many such moments. The Chen couple had become regular. Guests at the hotel restaurant, often bringing friends. The construction workers now filled the bar every Friday evening. Their tips generous and their respect for the space absolute. The occupancy numbers came in, Crawford said, pulling out a report. We're up 20%. And the average guest, satisfaction score. He paused, still adjusting to good news. It's the highest in the hotel's history. Tom walked to the window, watching the steady stream of guests below. A woman in designer heels chatted with a man in work boots. A group of students with backpacks mixed comfortably with business executives in the lobby. You know what this reminds me of? He said, turning back to Crawford and Jimmy. When I first started farming organically, everyone said I was crazy. You can't make money without chemicals, they told me. The market won't support it. But I knew that if we just respected the land and trusted the process, quality would follow. And now Davidson Organic is the largest supplier of premium produce in the country, Jimmy finished. He'd done his research on his new boss. The principle is the same, Tom continued. Respect people, trust the process, and quality follows naturally. A knock at the door interrupted them. Maria entered, leading a young woman in a housekeeping uniform. Tom, remember how you asked us to identify staff with potential? This is Elena. She has a degree in hotel management from her home country. But Maria looked meaningfully at Crawford. But I told her we only promoted people with American degrees, Crawford finished. He stood, straightening his jacket. Elena, I was wrong. Would you be interested in joining our management training program? Elena's eyes widened. Really? But what about my accent? Your accent is proof you can communicate in multiple languages, Jimmy said firmly. That's an asset, not a liability. Tom watched the scene unfold, remembering his father's words about seeds and care. Elena's smile was like a flower blooming, potential finally finding its sunlight. Mr. Crawford, Elena said hesitantly, why did you change your mind? Crawford touched his gold service pin, now a reminder of both past mistakes and future possibilities. Because someone showed me that true luxury isn't about keeping people out. It's about helping people rise. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, catching the crystal chandeliers and casting rainbow patterns across the room. Below, the lobby hummed with the sound of genuine hospitality, conversations in multiple languages, laughter unrestricted by social barriers, humanity untamed by pretense. We're not just changing a hotel, Tom said quietly. We're changing how people see themselves and each other. That's the real luxury we're offering. Jimmy nodded toward the thank you letter on the desk. Should we frame it? Yes, Crawford answered before Tom could. In the lobby where everyone can see it. And a reminder that sometimes our biggest mistakes can lead to our best opportunities. Outside, a farmer in work boots was checking in, soil still fresh on his jeans. The desk clerk, one of Crawford's new hires, greeted him with genuine warmth, offering him the hotel's finest suite. Some changes Tom knew took root slowly, like winter wheat beneath frozen ground. Others burst forth like spring flowers after rain. The Monarch was experiencing both kinds, and the harvest was already exceeding expectations. The memo circulated among Manhattan's luxury hotels like wildfire. Monarch's revolution disrupts market. Tom found a copy on his desk one morning, forwarded by a friend in the industry. The other hotel's panic was evident in every line. Traditional luxury properties report booking declines as diverse clientele gravitates to Monarch's inclusive model. Guest feedback suggests shifting definition of premium hospitality. Urgent strategy meeting called by Hotel Association. They're running. Scared, Sarah commented, reading over his shoulder. The plaza just called. They want to know if you'd consider consulting on their diversity initiatives. Tom laughed. Let me guess. They've noticed their wealthy regulars trying us out? More than that. Their corporate clients are requesting the Monarch specifically. Something about wanting to project a more inclusive image. The door opened, and Jimmy rushed in, tablet in hand. You need to see this. The Times just posted their annual luxury hotel rankings. The article's headline made Tom smile. Monarch Hotel redefines luxury through radical inclusion. Below it, a photo showed their lobby during peak hours. Executives in suits mingling with artists in paint-splattered jeans, tourists in casual wear chatting with celebrities trying to be inconspicuous. We're rated #1, Jimmy announced, proudly. Not just in New York, in the country. They're calling it the future of hospitality. Crawford entered, looking troubled. The other hotels are retaliating. The Ritz just announced a major price cut. The Four Seasons is launching their own community outreach program. Good, Tom said simply. Good? Crawford looked confused. They're trying to copy us. No, they're trying to copy our results without understanding our philosophy. It's like when my competitors saw my organic farms succeeding and sprayed their fields with water, calling it natural farming. The method isn't the magic. The commitment is. The phone rang. Another luxury hotel CEO wanting to discuss. Market dynamics. Tom let it go to voicemail. Sir, Jimmy hesitated, the Hotel Association is pressuring us. They say we're disrupting industry standards. Standards, Tom mused. Tell me, Jimmy, what's our occupancy rate? 98%. And our revenue per room is up 30%. And our staff turnover rate. Lowest in the city. We actually have a waiting list of applicants now. Tom stood, walking to his window. Below, a group of young tech entrepreneurs in hoodies was helping an elderly couple with their luggage. The couple had become regulars after most other luxury hotels had subtly discouraged them. The industry says we're disrupting their standards, Tom said. But look at those numbers. Look at our guests. Look at our staff. We're not disrupting standards, we're raising them. Sarah's phone buzzed with another media request. Forbes wants to do a profile. They're calling it The Farm Boy Who Revolutionized Luxury Hospitality. Tell them the revolution was always here, Tom replied. We just had to strip away the artificial barriers to see it. Crawford straightened his tie, a nervous habit he still hadn't shed. The plaza's manager called me personally, wanted to know our secret formula for success. What did you... And tell him, Jimmy asked. I said the secret was realizing there is no secret. Just treat people like people. Crawford smiled slightly. He didn't like that answer. A commotion in the lobby drew their attention. Through the office windows, they could see a group of hotel executives in expensive suits, touring the property with poorly concealed notepads. Our third group this week, Jimmy sighed. They take pictures, make notes, but they never stay to talk to the staff or guests. Because they're looking for a marketing strategy, Tom explained. They want to package inclusion as a product. But real inclusion isn't a product, it's a practice. It's choosing every day to see the worth in people others overlook. The executives below were frowning at a family in casual clothes checking into a luxury suite. They couldn't see what Tom saw. The genuine smiles, the relaxed atmosphere, the natural flow of human connection unrestricted by artificial barriers. Let them look, Tom said finally. Let them copy. Some will get it wrong, focusing on surface changes. But others will understand. And little by little, the whole industry will have to evolve. Sarah gathered her papers, and speaking of evolution, the waiting list for our hospitality training program just hit 300 applications. Time to expand it then, Tom nodded. After all, changing one hotel was never the real goal. We're growing something bigger here, one seed of change at a time. Late one evening, after most of the staff had gone home, Tom stood in his office holding a worn photograph. In it, a young woman with kind eyes stood beside him in front of their first farm stand, both of them smiling despite their obvious exhaustion. Rebecca, his late wife, had always believed in him, even when success seemed impossible. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Crawford entered, carrying a stack of old employee files. "Still here?" Tom asked, carefully returning the photo to his desk. "I've been reviewing past rejections, trying to make things right." Crawford paused, noticing the photograph. "Is that Mrs. Davidson?" "Rebecca." Tom's voice softened. "She passed away 12 years ago. Cancer. We just started expanding the business." He touched the frame gently. "She always said success meant nothing if you forgot where you came from." Crawford sat down heavily, his own carefully maintained facade cracking. "I never told anyone this, but I came from nothing too. Parents worked in a diner. I put myself through hotel school washing dishes, just like that first Monarch owner. What changed you? Fear, I suppose." Crawford stared at his polished shoes. "My first hotel job. I saw how the wealthy guests looked down on the staff. I Promised myself I'd never be on the receiving end of that look again, so I learned to give it instead. Tom nodded toward the photograph. Rebecca used to serve free soup at our farm stand. Local workers, struggling families, anyone who needed it. People said we'd go broke, but those same folks became our most loyal customers when times got better. Through the window they could see the Monarch's lit windows, reflecting against neighboring buildings. Each light represented a room where someone was being treated with dignity, regardless of their appearance or background. "My daughter hasn't spoken to me in 3 years," Crawford said suddenly. "She said I'd become someone she didn't recognize, too focused on appearances, on status." He pulled out his wallet, revealing a hidden photo of a young woman with his eyes. "She works at a community center now, helping immigrants adjust to America. The irony isn't lost on me. Have you tried reaching out since the changes here?" "I wouldn't know what to say." Crawford's voice cracked. "Sorry I became everything I once despised." Tom picked up Rebecca's photo again. "You know what the hardest part of organic farming was? Not the extra work or the risk. It was admitting that everything I'd been taught about modern farming was wrong. That my father's old-fashioned values about respecting the land were right all along." A noise from the lobby drew their attention. The night-cleaning crew was starting their shift. The invisible workers who kept the hotel running while others slept. Under the old regime, they would have used back corridors, staying out of sight. Now they moved freely, greeting late-arriving guests with the same dignity they received in return. "Your daughter," Tom said carefully. "She's doing what you originally wanted to do, isn't she? Making a difference in people's lives?" Crawford nodded, unable to speak. "Then start there. Show her the new training programs, the staff success stories. Let her see you're finding your way back to who you really are. What if it's too late?" "Rebecca taught me something about that too." Tom smiled at the memory. "We had a drought our second year farming. Everything looked dead. I wanted to plow it all under, start over. She made me wait. Deep roots," she said, "can survive anything, if you give them a chance." He opened his desk drawer and pulled out 2 envelopes, invitations to the Monarch's first community appreciation dinner. "Here's your chance. Your daughter should see what her father's helping build." Crawford took the invitations with trembling hands. "I don't deserve a second chance." "None of us deserve them," Tom said quietly. "That's why they're gifts, like rain after drought, or forgiveness after failure." He gestured to the photo of Rebecca, "or soup on a cold day when you can't afford to pay." The night settled around them, the hotel's lights reflecting like stars in the darkened windows. Somewhere in the city, a young woman who shared Crawford's eyes was working to make the world more welcoming. And here, in a transformed hotel, her father was finally learning to do the same. "Thank you," Crawford whispered, clutching the invitations, like lifelines, "for showing me there's another way." "Thank Rebecca," Tom replied softly. "She's the one who taught me that true wealth isn't what you have, it's what you share." The headline hit social media like a thunderbolt. "Exclusive. Luxury hotels inclusion policy leads to $2 million jewelry theft." The story spread quickly, complete with grainy security footage of a man in work clothes entering the Monarch's presidential suite. By morning, the hotel's phones were ringing non-stop. 3 cancellations in the last hour, Jimmy reported, pacing Tom's office. "The Post is running with Monarch's open-door policy opens door to crime." Sarah was already in damage control mode. "The security footage is misleading. The man was a legitimate guest, a construction company owner worth millions. The missing jewelry was found in the spa, where the actual guest had left it. But the damage is done," Crawford added quietly. "Our competitors are already using this to validate their traditional standards." Tom stood at his window watching. Protesters gather outside. Former guests holding signs about safety and standards. He'd seen this before, when his organic farming methods first challenged conventional wisdom. Fear of change always found its weapons. "Get everyone in the main ballroom," he said finally. "All staff, all shifts. It's time we face this head on." An hour later, the ballroom was packed. Housekeepers sat next to executives, bellhops beside managers. The anxiety was palpable. Many had worked at hotels that folded under less pressure. "You've all seen the news," Tom began, standing on the small stage. "Our competitors want you to believe that inclusion and excellence can't coexist, that safety requires discrimination, that we have to choose between being welcoming and being successful." He paused, letting his words sink in. "They're wrong. And I'm going to tell you why by sharing a story I've never told publicly." The room quieted. Even Sarah looked curious. 20 years ago, I walked into the finest restaurant in Kansas City, dressed in my work clothes after a day in the fields. I wanted to surprise Rebecca, my late wife, for our anniversary. The maitre d' took one look at me and assumed I couldn't afford it. He was right. I couldn't, not really. I'd been saving for months. Tom's voice grew softer, but in the silent room, every word carried. What he didn't know was that Rebecca was already inside, waiting. She was dressed up, looking beautiful, excited about her farmer husband finally taking her somewhere fancy. Instead, she watched through the window as they turned me away. We ended up eating at a diner. He looked around the room, meeting eyes with his staff. 2 months later, she was diagnosed with cancer. That fancy dinner we never had, it became a symbol of everything I regretted, letting other people's judgments define our choices, accepting the limits they placed on us. Crawford stood up suddenly. "I was that maitre d'." A gasp rippled through the room. "Not literally," Crawford continued, his voice shaking, "but I was him 1,000 times over. Every person I turned away had their own story, their own special moment I ruined because I thought I could judge their worth by their appearance." "Exactly," Tom nodded. "This crisis isn't about security protocols or jewelry. It's about fear. Fear of change, fear of difference, fear of admitting that the old ways were wrong." Jimmy stepped forward, holding up his tablet. "The guest from the security footage is here. He'd like to speak." The man who entered was indeed wearing work clothes, though today they were clean, not fresh from a construction site. "Name's Bill Martinez. I build luxury homes, so I know something about both worlds. Yesterday, I checked in wearing my site clothes because I'd just finished inspecting a project. The staff here treated me with respect. At other hotels, I have to change. First or send my assistants to check in." Murmurs of recognition spread through the room. Many staff members had similar stories. "So here's what we're going to do," Tom announced. "Instead of retreating, we're going to double down on our values. Jimmy, work with Bill to create a video about his experience. Sarah, release our security and satisfaction statistics. And tell the real story. Elena, your team's multilingual welcome program. Make it standard training for all staff." He turned to Crawford. "And James, remember that community appreciation dinner you were worried about? Move it up. Let's show everyone what real luxury looks like when it's open to all." The energy in the room shifted. Fear gave way to determination. This wasn't just about saving a hotel's reputation. It was about defending a principle. "One last thing," Tom added. "Rebecca taught me that the easiest path isn't always the right one. Right now, the easy path would be to compromise, to add back some of those old discriminatory standards. We're not going to do that." He looked out at his staff, diverse, united, proud. "We're going to show the world that true luxury isn't about keeping people out. It's about bringing people together. Who's with me?" The response was unanimous. In that moment, the crisis became an opportunity, a chance to prove that their revolution in hospitality wasn't just a marketing strategy, but a movement whose time had come. Crawford sat at his desk late into the night, a half-written resignation letter on his computer screen. The cursor blinked accusingly as he struggled with the words. In his drawer lay his gold service pin and a printed email from his daughter. Her first response in 3 years, agreeing to attend the community appreciation dinner. A knock at his door startled him. Elena entered, still in her management trainee uniform. "Mr. Crawford, the Hendersons are back." He knew immediately what that meant. The Hendersons, the wealthy couple who'd cancelled their standing reservation, in protest of the hotel's new policies, had been his pride and joy under the old regime. "They're demanding to speak with you specifically," Elena continued. "They say they'll consider returning their business if we restore proper standards." Crawford stood, straightening his tie out of habit. As he walked to the lobby, memories flooded back. All the times he'd fawned over the Hendersons, all the other guests he'd turned away to maintain their comfort. The couple stood regally by the front desk, Mrs. Henderson's diamonds catching the light. They were exactly as he remembered, down to Mr. Henderson's practiced scowl. "James," Mrs. Henderson smiled tightly, "so good to see you maintaining some standards at least. Your appearance is still impeccable. Unlike the rest of this place," Mr. Henderson added, gesturing to where a group of young tech entrepreneurs lounged in hoodies. "But we're willing to help you fix that. A word with the new owner about proper guest screening," and Crawford felt something shift inside him, like a key turning, unlocking a door he'd kept shut for decades. "No," he said quietly. "Excuse me." "No," Crawford repeated, stronger now. "We don't need to fix anything. The hotel isn't broken, it's healed." Mrs. Henderson's smile froze. "James, dear, be reasonable. You know what sort of people—" "I know exactly what sort of people," Crawford interrupted. "Good people, hard-working people, people I spent years turning away because I was too afraid to see their worth." He touched his bare lapel where his service pin used to rest. "People like my parents, like I used to be." "Well," Mrs. Henderson drew herself up, "I never thought I'd see the day when James Crawford forgot his place." "That's just it," he smiled gently. "I finally remembered my place, my real place." He gestured to Elena, who had watched the exchange closely. "Elena, would you show the Hendersons out? And then we should review the community dinner seating arrangements. I want to make sure every table has a good mix of guests." As the Hendersons stormed out, Tom emerged from the shadows of the lobby. "Heard the whole thing. You okay?" Crawford deleted the resignation letter from his computer with a single keystroke. "You know what? For the first time in 30 years, I really am." "Good," Tom nodded, "because we need you for what comes next. The other luxury hotels are forming an association to maintain traditional standards. They'll try to freeze us out, pressure our suppliers." "Let them try," Crawford's voice was firm. "I spent decades building walls. I think it's time I helped tear some down." His phone buzzed. Another email from his daughter. "Dad, I saw the video about the Monarch's changes. Is it true what they're saying about you learning to see people differently? Maybe we could talk before the dinner." Tom watched as Crawford's eyes welled up. "Go," he said softly. "Some harvests can't wait." "The dinner preparations, we'll be here when you get back. Some things matter more than place settings." Crawford gathered his coat, then paused. "Tom, what Rebecca said about the fancy restaurant, about not letting others define your choices." "Yes? Thank you for helping me make a better choice." After Crawford left, Tom stood in the lobby watching the diverse mix of guests flowing through. The space. A construction worker held the door for a CEO. A student in a hijab shared restaurant recommendations with a retired couple. A famous actor waited patiently while a family in tourist clothes figured out their map. This was what Rebecca would have wanted to see. Not just a fancy dinner, but a place where everyone could feel the simple dignity of being welcomed as they were. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The other hotels would fight back, try to preserve their exclusive world. But tonight, in this lobby, the future of hospitality was already blooming, growing like seeds in well-tended soil, reaching toward the light of possibility. The new Monarch Hotel logo gleamed above the entrance, a traditional crown intertwined with an open door, symbolizing the balance they'd finally achieved between luxury and accessibility. Inside, the community appreciation dinner was in full swing, the grand ballroom alive with conversations in a dozen different languages. Tom stood at the entrance, watching Crawford nervously adjust his tie as a young woman approached. Lisa Crawford had her father's bearing, but a warmth in her eyes that he was only now rediscovering. "Dad?" she said softly. Lisa Crawford's practiced composure cracked. You look just like your mother." "The community center folks couldn't believe it when I told them where the dinner was being held," Lisa said, looking around. "They remembered being turned away from here, but now, things are different," Crawford finished. "I'm different. At least, I'm trying to be. I know. I saw the changes you're making, the training programs, the outreach." She touched his arm gently. "It reminds me of the dad who used to volunteer at the shelter before I forgot who I was." Crawford nodded. Would you like to see what we're doing here?" As father and daughter walked away, Tom felt a presence beside him. Maria, now head of guest services, smiled at the scene. "The other hotels are still fighting us," she said. "The Plaza just cancelled our shared supplier contracts." "Let them," Tom replied. "We'll find new suppliers, maybe some of those small businesses we've been helping." Across the room, Jimmy was giving a tour to a group of hospitality students, a diverse bunch from local community colleges, exactly the kind of people the old Monarch would have overlooked. "And here's where we're installing the new welcome center," Jimmy was saying. "Multiple languages, cultural sensitivity training, accessibility features, everything to make sure every guest feels at home." The hotel's new identity was everywhere you looked. The menu featured both haute cuisine and comfort food, each prepared with equal care. The staff uniforms had been redesigned for comfort without sacrificing style. Even the art on the walls had changed, now showcasing local artists alongside classical pieces. Elena approached with a tablet. "The latest numbers are in. Our occupancy rate is steady at 98%, even with the other hotel's campaign against us. And look at this." She showed Tom a social media post that was going viral. "The Monarch showed me what true luxury means. They saw my worth when other hotels saw only my wheelchair." Tom thought of his father's old wallet, still in his office safe. The lessons written on that worn photograph had spread far beyond one farmer's son, rippling out to change countless lives. Crawford returned, his eyes bright. "Lisa's going to help us develop a program for immigrant hospitality workers. She says she's proud of what we're doing here." The evening continued, a testament to what was possible when barriers fell away. A famous singer performed an impromptu duet with a subway musician. A tech billionaire traded business cards with a food truck owner. Children from the local community center played among the crystal chandeliers. "You know what this reminds me of," Tom said to no one in particular. "The first harvest festival we held at the farm. Everyone came, rich, poor, locals, migrants. The food wasn't fancy, but everyone ate together. That's when I realized success isn't about what you have, it's about what you share." Sarah joined them, tablet in hand. "The other luxury hotels are calling an emergency meeting tomorrow. They're worried we're changing industry standards." "We're not changing their standards," Tom smiled. "We're creating better ones." As if to prove his point, the young bellhop who'd first helped Tom that rainy night now confidently directed a group of international business executives to their tables. The construction workers, who'd once felt unwelcome, sat comfortably in the luxury they'd helped build. Eleanor's trainee program graduates moved through the crowd with professional ease. The Monarch had transformed, not by lowering its standards, but by raising them, measuring luxury not by exclusivity, but by the dignity with which every person was treated. Crawford touched his bare lapel, where his gold service pin used to rest. He didn't need it anymore. He'd found something better. Authenticity, redemption, and the pride of helping others rise. "Now this," Tom said, surveying the room, "is what I call a real five-star experience." 1 year after the Community Appreciation Dinner, the Monarch received an unexpected delivery, a Crystal Award from the International Hospitality Association. The inscription read, for revolutionary innovation in guest services and community impact. Tom found it ironic that the same organization that had once criticized their inclusive policies was now celebrating them. He placed the award in the lobby next to a wall of photographs showing the hotel's journey, including one of him in his work boots that first rainy night. "The Four Seasons called again," Sarah said, entering his office. "They want to partner on the hospitality training program." "And the Plaza?" Tom asked, knowing they'd been the last holdout. "Announced their own community initiative this morning. They're calling it Luxury for All." Sarah smiled. "Sound familiar?" Through the window, they could see Crawford leading a tour group, hospitality students from around the world who'd come to study the Monarch's model. His daughter Lisa had helped design the curriculum, blending traditional luxury service with social consciousness. "Mr. Davidson?" Jimmy knocked on the door. "You might want to see this." He handed over a business magazine. The cover showed the Monarch's distinctive crown and door logo with the headline, "The Davidson Effect: How One Hotel Changed the Face of Luxury Hospitality." "They're missing the point," Tom said, setting the magazine aside. "It was never about changing the industry. It was about remembering what hospitality really means." The hotel had indeed changed, but in ways no magazine could fully capture. The staff moved with a confidence born of respect rather than rigid rules. Guests from all walks of life mingled naturally in the spaces that had once been exclusive territories. Elena, now the full-fledged training director, entered with her latest class roster. "We have students from 30 countries this semester. Even the Ritz-Carlton is sending people." "And how's the new apprenticeship program going?" Tom asked. "Amazing! That former dishwasher I told you about, he's already showing management potential, reminds me of the original owner's story." Tom thought about cycles and seasons, about how change could loop back to restore what was lost. The Monarch had returned to its roots while growing into something new, like a well-tended field producing an unexpected harvest. Crawford appeared in the doorway, his tour complete. He'd finally gotten rid of his overly formal suits, opting for a style that balanced professionalism with approachability. "The students had an interesting question," he said. "They wanted to know what happened to my gold service pin." "And what did you tell them?" "That I found something more valuable, the chance to help others shine." Maria rushed in, excitement breaking through her usual calm. "The results are in from the city's homeless outreach program. 12 of our hospitality graduates have found full-time work, 3 of them here at the Monarch." Tom smiled, remembering Rebecca's free soup at the farm stand. Small acts of kindness could grow into lasting change. The phone rang. Another. Luxury hotel CEO wanting to discuss industry evolution. But now these calls felt different. The other hotels weren't just copying programs. They were beginning to understand the philosophy behind them. "You know what the best part is?" Jimmy said, reviewing the latest guest feedback. "Other hotels are starting to compete on inclusion rather than exclusion. It's becoming the new standard." Through the lobby windows, they could see a farmer in muddy boots being welcomed as warmly as the celebrity who followed him through the door. A wheelchair user navigated the thoughtfully designed spaces with ease. A group of construction workers headed to the restaurant for lunch, no longer feeling out of place. "Davidson Agricultural Enterprises still leads in organic farming," Sarah noted. "But the Monarch is becoming just as influential in hospitality." "Because both are about the same thing," Tom replied. "Respecting natural value. Whether it's soil or people, the principle is the same. Nurture what's there, and something extraordinary grows." The Crystal Award caught the afternoon light, sending rainbow patterns across the lobby. But the real testament to their success wasn't in awards or magazine covers. It was in the countless small moments of dignity being restored, of barriers being broken, of people finding welcome where once they'd found walls. "Mr. Davidson," a young trainee approached nervously. "Would you tell us the story again, about that first night in the rain?" Tom smiled. Some stories needed to be retold, not because they were about the past, but because they lit the way to the future. "Well," he began, "it was a rainy night in Manhattan, and I had mud on my boots." The guest book sat open on the Monarch's front desk, its pages filled with signatures that told the hotel's new story. A farmer's name beside a senator's, a taxi driver's next to a tech mogul's. Each entry represented not just a stay, but a small victory for dignity. Tom rarely visited the hotel these days, trusting his team to carry forward the vision. But today was special. Exactly 2 years since that rainy night when Crawford had turned him away. "Everything's ready for the announcement," Sarah said, falling into step beside him as he crossed the lobby. "Though I still think you should let us handle it." "Some things you need to do in person," Tom replied. The press had gathered in the grand ballroom, along with hotel staff and industry representatives. Even the Hendersons were there, having finally returned as guests after their own change of heart. Crawford stood at the podium, his daughter Lisa beside him. He'd grown into his role as the hotel's public face, becoming known for his passionate speeches about inclusive luxury. "2 years ago," Crawford began, "I made the worst mistake of my career. I judged a man by his boots rather than his character." He smiled at Tom. "That man taught us all that true luxury isn't about keeping people out. It's about lifting people up." Tom took the podium, looking out at faces that reflected the diversity he'd fought to achieve. "Today, I'm announcing that the Monarch's model will be expanding. We're launching the Davidson Hospitality Group, transforming hotels across the country with the same principles that changed this one." The room erupted in applause, but Tom raised his hand for quiet. "But that's only half the announcement. The other half belongs to someone else." He gestured to Jimmy, now the Monarch's general manager. "Jimmy, would you join me?" Jimmy approached the podium, confusion visible on his face. 2 years ago, Jimmy was a bellhop who risked his job to help a stranger. Tom continued. "Today, he's going to be the new owner of the Monarch Hotel." The room went silent. Jimmy stared at Tom in shock. But sir, I can't possibly—" "You can and you will," Tom smiled. "I'm not selling it to you, I'm giving it to you. Because you understood something naturally that others had to learn, that every person deserves to be treated with dignity." Tears formed in Jimmy's eyes as Tom handed him the deed. "The Davidson Group will handle the business side," Tom explained to the stunned audience. "But the Monarch needs someone who never forgot what hospitality really means. Someone who saw, within a muddy farmer on a rainy night. The significance wasn't lost on anyone. A former bellhop would now own the hotel that had once been a symbol of exclusivity." "Full circle," Crawford murmured, touching his lapel where his service pin used to rest. Elena stepped forward with a gift-wrapped box. Inside was a new logo. "Pin for Jimmy, a crown and door rendered in simple silver. The crown reminds us of excellence," Tom explained. "The door reminds us to stay open to everyone. Wear it with pride, Jimmy. You've earned it." As the camera flashes popped and reporters called out questions, Tom noticed a group of hotel workers watching from the back. The invisible people who kept luxury hotels running. Their faces showed something he recognized from his early farming. And days, the look of people seeing possibilities they'd never imagined. Later, in his office, Tom packed up the few personal items he kept there. The photo of Rebecca still held pride of place on his desk. "She'd be proud," Sarah said from the doorway. "Not just of what you built, but of how you're passing it on." "Like my father passing on the farm," Tom nodded. "Some things grow better when you share them." Through the window, he could see Jimmy showing his family around, his mother in her housekeeping uniform from another hotel, his father still in construction work clothes. They walked the lobby with a mix of pride and disbelief. Crawford and Lisa were in the restaurant, hosting a dinner for community center workers. The Hendersons sat with them, engaged in animated conversation about expanding the training program. "You know what this reminds me of?" Tom said, picking up Rebecca's photo. "That first farmer's market where we gave away soup. Someone asked me why we do that when we barely had enough to get by ourselves. What did you tell them? That generosity isn't about what you can afford to give, it's about what you can't afford to keep. He took one last look at the lobby below, where a farmer in muddy boots was being welcomed like a king. The Monarch's in good hands now, he said softly. Time to plant new seeds. The wall of photos in the Monarch's lobby told a story of transformation. Images of guests and staff, celebrities and workers, arranged not by status, but by the moments they captured. At the center hung the original photo of Tom in his muddy boots, a reminder of where it all began. 5 years had passed since that rainy night. The Davidson Hospitality Group now operated 50 hotels across the country, each following the Monarch's model of inclusive luxury. But the flagship hotel, under Jimmy's ownership, remained the heart of the revolution. Another hotel chain called about adopting our training program, Elena told Jimmy as they reviewed the morning reports. She'd turned down offers to run larger properties, preferring to continue her work at the Monarch. That makes 23 this year. What once was radical has become the standard, Jimmy nodded, adjusting his silver crown and door pin. Did you see the industry report? Inclusive luxury is now the fastest-growing segment in hospitality. Through the lobby windows, they could see Crawford giving a tour to hospitality students. His daughter Lisa had helped develop a college curriculum based on the Monarch's philosophy, now taught in schools worldwide. And this, they heard Crawford saying, is where I learned that luxury isn't about exclusion. It's about making everyone feel valued. The students scribbled notes, eager to learn from the man who'd become a respected voice for industry change. Tom visited occasionally, though his focus had shifted to new projects. The Davidson Foundation now offered grants to small businesses practicing inclusive policies. His agricultural empire had expanded to include training programs for immigrant farmers. But today was special. The Monarch was hosting an industry summit on accessibility and inclusion, and Tom had returned to give the keynote speech. The grand ballroom filled with hotel owners and executives, many of whom had once criticized the Monarch's changes. Now they sat eagerly, waiting to learn from its success. 5 years ago, Tom began, a farmer with muddy boots walked into a luxury hotel. He was turned away, but not defeated. That moment could have been about revenge. Instead, it became about transformation. He gestured to the diverse crowd. Look around. Every person in this room has value. Every guest who walks through your doors has worth. True luxury isn't about creating barriers, it's about removing them. In the audience, the Hendersons nodded. They'd become unexpected allies, using their influence to promote inclusive policies throughout the industry. Their own story of change had inspired other long-time luxury clients to embrace the new philosophy. Maria, now running her own hotel in the Davidson Group, stood to share her journey from housekeeper to executive. Her accent, once seen as a liability, was now appreciated as an asset in connecting with international guests. The day continued with presentations and panels, but the real proof of success could be seen in the hotel itself. A celebrated author chatted with a taxi driver in the bar. A farmer's mud-stained boots rested next to a socialite's designer heels in the lobby. Every interaction reflected the simple dignity of being welcomed as you are. That evening, Tom stood in his old office, now Jimmy's, looking out at the city lights. The photo of Rebecca still hung on the wall, Jimmy having insisted it remain as inspiration. I wish she could see this, Tom said softly. She can, Jimmy replied, in every person who walks through those doors, feeling worthy. In every life. Unchanged by what we built here. Crawford knocked and entered, followed by his daughter. They'd just finished hosting a dinner for the next class of hospitality trainees. The students had an interesting question, Lisa said. They wanted to know if we ever regret opening luxury to everyone, if it somehow diminishes the experience. What did you tell them? Tom asked. I told them about the farmer who became a legend, about the bellhop who became an owner, about my father who learned that his best self wasn't the one keeping people out, it was the one helping people rise. Through the window, they watched guests arriving for the evening. The doorman greeted each one with genuine warmth, seeing not their clothes or status, but their humanity. You know what this reminds me of? Tom smiled. Every good harvest begins the same way, with someone willing to see the potential in what others overlook. The Monarch stood proud against the night sky, its lights a beacon of welcome in the city. Inside, a new generation of hoteliers was learning that true luxury wasn't about exclusivity. It was about dignity, respect, and the simple power of treating every person as worthy of welcome. The revolution that began with muddy boots on a marble floor had become a movement, and in the end, that movement had transformed not just an industry, but the very meaning of luxury itself.